Okay, so now that we're done with the roof, we're gonna start doing the soffit and fascia. In this attic, there was really no insulation, so we did the blow-in insulation. And so these pieces of plywood right here are there because I didn't want the insulation to flow out the sides. Everything is vented through here now, so we can block off this. You wouldn't normally want to do that though. It depends on how you have it set up, because normally if you have blow-in insulation or even fiberglass insulation, you would normally use what they call prop vent, which is basically a baffle that lets the air flow through here even though there's insulation right underneath of it. So it creates like a void there, because otherwise if you insulate right up to the top and say this was actually your plywood right here, then the air couldn't flow through there. And this is going to be the intake of the vents, or the vent system. On this soffit and fascia system that I use, the basic concept of it is that this is vented soffit and this is slotted. Sometimes they have regular circular holes in them, but I like the slotted ones better. It seems that they keep out bugs more. So if you turn to the side, you can see through it, but if you turn it like this, you really can't see through it. So the way that this works is, this is called F channel, and for obvious reasons. There's an F. So with this, you put this in here to hold up the other end of the soffit. And if you're doing vinyl siding, or you're doing something like if there was no siding here, you could run it like this, and then you put your siding over top of that flange. But in this case, the siding's already here. So the way that we're going to do this is actually put it up like this, so that the flange is hidden. So once you put that in there, then you can put the soffit on. So that's how that works. So that gives it a channel to rest in. And this is just an example, this piece isn't long enough. But basically then the other end would be held in by this flange right here, right on the end. You would attach it with a screw, or most people do nails actually, but I don't really like banging on the overhang to put those nails in, because then stuff always falls on you. So I always put screws in. So I'll use like 1.25 inch exterior screws, and you just put one in right here, and then everything's held up, and then the next one interlocks with that. And so you only need to put one screw per piece in, and then everything's interlocked together. So once these pieces are all put up, once the soffit's all done, then I'll put a piece of aluminum fascia to go from here over, and there's be like a 3/4 to 1 inch flange that overlaps this part of it, so you can't see that, and it also holds it up more too. When you do this, basically your entire soffit and fascia can never rot, as long as something doesn't rot behind it, like the roof doesn't leak behind it or something. But the fascia is aluminum and the soffit is vinyl, so they can never rot. So that works out pretty good, instead of having a wood fascia or a wood soffit, or both. I usually never try to use that. The other option that you can use is PVC board. Most people call it AZEK, but there's different brands. You can use that for both the soffit and the fascia, but it's super expensive. And if you're going to use PVC board, this would actually be your sub fascia, and then that would be your fascia that would go on top of that, because it's not structural enough to be just the fascia by itself. A lot of people will use 1-bys for the fascia, but I always use a full 2-by, and then I put aluminum over it. That's 99% of the time that's how I do something, unless I have something to patch or repair, but I don't really do that much work of that sort of nature anymore. Alright guys, so this side is done, the soffit and fascia anyways. So you can see what it looks like before and what it looks like now. And we kind of started over with the whole process because we extended the overhang. But you can also do that like we're going to do on the gable ends here. We're going to just kind of renovate it, make it look better. So we started off by adding a 2x6 to straighten it out, and then we're just going to put all new soffit and fascia on. We already got the soffit on, so now we just got to put the fascia on. So right here we had put up just a scrap piece that was laying around from the addition when we demoed it. And the reason is because there's no way to really nail that side of the soffit. You see, you would nail or screw it right here, but there's just not enough room to get even an impact gun in there, especially up there. So we just use this just to put over, because it's got a flange on the bottom, and that will hold up all those pieces. And I'll just put my new piece overlapping that, so it'll just be kind of in there but not really doing anything. And then I'm going to cover up all the flashing right there, and even the counter flashing. This piece that we put in kind of serves as a dual purpose, because now it slips behind the last piece of step flashing here, and the flange also goes past. So now everything is ice proof and wind driven rain proof, and it's much better. So even if you don't need this piece to hold up the soffit, you should probably put like a foot long or 18-inch piece in there just to make the transition. And then from there, there's going to be no flange on the bottom of the piece that I put on, from there all the way to the top. So now this piece isn't going to be as strong, so you got to face nail it. But that's all right, because we already got counter flashing there. So this is like counter flashing to the counter flashing. So in this corner where I have the step out flashing, underneath of here where these kind of connect and switch planes, I got this piece here, and I'm going to slide it up behind the drip edge, slide it up behind the step flashing. And also I think it's probably a good idea to add another piece that kind of comes out further out here, because that's like the most prone area to have a problem. I mean, it shouldn't have a problem because the kick-out flashing's there, but this is just an extra layer of protection. Soffit and fascia is kind of a tedious, boring thing to do, and I wasn't even going to make a video about it, but there's some things that are interesting. So if you've been following this video so far, I can tell you a few more facts about what's going on. So the first thing I want to go over, the way that I overlapped here is not what you normally see. Normally you would run the fascia past and you'd cut the flange off so that you have that line continuing down for the fascia, so that like 6 inches would follow all the way down to a point. And I used to do it like that, but this is a lot easier, quicker, and I also like the fact that there's not a piece on it that doesn't have a flange or something to hold it down. Because when you extend that piece all the way down, from there to there has no flange on it. So when you extend that piece of fascia all the way down and then you cut the flange off, it's really weak and it can blow away in the wind unless you put a bunch of nails in it, and that, in my opinion, doesn't look that great. So you don't see this style too often. Another thing that I did is miter the corners. You always want to miter the corners and overlap them. So everything has an overlap. There's no places that only have two pieces meeting up with each other. So this is the brake that I used. This is a Tapco. It's a Portabender Pro 2. It's 10'6". So I try to usually make my pieces about 10 foot. And when I bought this, I got it for really cheap because it needed a big tune-up. Everything about it was like way off. So when you made a piece, it wouldn't even clamp down and it wouldn't be straight. So I got some parts for it and I totally like readjusted everything on it. Whenever I'm doing soffit and fascia, I always add a bird box, or you can call that a return. And it makes it look so much cleaner, nicer, more streamlined. A lot of guys will just kind of try to blend in the two soffits to each other, and I always think that looks really shoddy. The coil stock that I use to make this fascia is 24 inches wide, 50 feet long. It's white on white, which means there's white on both sides. If you buy this stuff from the box store, it always, for some reason, comes in really shiny. And that's the last thing that you want on something like fascia, because it's metal and it's not perfect. It's going to have some dimples in it and some spots, some imperfections that you can see so much easier when it's a shiny material. So I usually get the dull finish on it, or like a flat finish. So usually I try to stay consistent with the nailing patterns. Like you can see, I have two nails on where it changes from one piece to another there, but then where it's just extending right there, I don't usually need to put anything. But then like here, because it changes angles, I need to put some nails in it again. So anytime that it changes planes or changes angles, I usually put some nails, face nails. But any other time, I try to stay away from face nailing. I usually always nail on the flange. But then in the corners where they overlap, I got a nail there. You need to leave room for expansion on anything that goes on the exterior of a house. So aluminum and the vinyl soffit, they all expand and contract when the temperatures get warmer and colder. And you need to leave room for expansion. So I oversize the hole so that it can move within the shank of the nail. But you would never want to just nail anything without pre-drilling it, and pre-drilling it oversized, just under the size of the head of the nail. So with this 444 slotted soffit, every foot of it that you put up has 7.2 square inches of open net area of venting. So in this case, these pieces are like 18 inches. So now let's talk about venting. A lot of you can see that there's a valley there, and it's hard to vent valleys usually. And so the solution that we came up with for this is I'm going to use this gable end, and actually all of the gable ends, to vent on the gable. The solution I came up with was drilling these holes up here, and basically the intake comes in through there, and then it's going to continue on with all these rafters. We just didn't do it yet, but we just did this so we didn't make a mess inside the soffit. When it comes time to insulate this, what we're going to do is make a baffle. This valley is being vented through the gables. And in the next video or two, I'll show you how I'm going to do that. So that's why I chose to do a vented soffit all the way around, because normally you would use solid on a gable, but I don't really mind the look of the vented, and a lot of other people don't either, especially since it matches all of the eave ends, which on this are not much. On the addition, that's really it right there. But on the rest of the house, like this side, there's a lot of eave here. So if you go to gaf.com, which is a GAF website, they actually have a calculator to figure out what you need for venting, because you need about equal intake and exhaust. This addition is 18 by 24, so that's 432 square feet. So if you use that calculator, it's 1/300th of the horizontal plane for that. So you would actually measure 18 by 24. That would actually be it doesn't really matter what the roof is, what the pitch is. It matters what the horizontal measurement is, which is 18 by 24. So for the correct amount of venting for that, it's going to be 104 minimum square inches. And that's going to be 104 square inches for the intake and 104 for the exhaust. And so that basically equals 7.5 feet of ridge vent. So we have definitely more than enough exhaust. And for an attic, you never want more exhaust than you do intake, because what'll happen is that'll create a negative pressure, and then you'll start pulling in air from the house or other places that are just not controlled, or you don't want it to go through there. It will pull it from the outlets and light boxes and stuff that's on your ceiling, and it'll pull it from your house, and that's not what you want. You definitely don't want air coming in from your house, because that could be loss of heat, especially on the upper level. That's where the heat's coming out. It's okay to have more intake than exhaust, but it's not the other way around. So a lot of people don't know that. But in this case, because these are cathedral ceilings, and what we're gonna do on this is called a sealed baffle for the venting. So in that case, we can actually have more exhaust because it can't pull the air from anywheres, because it's gonna be a sealed baffle. And I'll show you guys on the next few videos what I'm talking about. On the next video, we're gonna be installing flashing and air sealing, as well as installing the windows and doors. And the video after that, I'm gonna get into more details about the venting, because it is a unique system. And I do wanna show you, because most people have never seen the way that I'm gonna do it. And I also have some more details about the venting for the rest of the house. And we'll do some calculations on it.